There's the Magic You Are Live pop-up. Hello, everybody. Giving you all a second to dial in. Give myself a shout out in case you haven't seen any streams yet today. I'm Lauren. I'm moderating for the day. I'm from Calibri Games in Berlin. That can be a good segue to tell you there'll be an in-person Hit Games conference in Berlin, which is going to be in October 24th to the 25th. So if you want to plan ahead for something to do before Halloween, check that out. But we are now here with Guy, who is going to talk to us about the hot topic that is AI. So without further ado, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I haven't done StreamYard for a little while, actually. So hopefully there's a space for folks for you to put comments in and questions. Please do ask away as we go through. This is going to be a super fast run through of some of the things really around that we're seeing in the industry at the moment, and where AI is impacting, because it is impacting. And so I want to cover some of the things we've seen. So first up, let me show you something we did a little while ago. You will have seen on that slide, Warner Brothers. This was a proof of concept we did for the Justice League franchise, bringing to life Steppenwolf. So imagine now that you've got Steppenwolf in your game, and he can now speak to you and you can speak back.
I'm Steppenwolf. And you look scared. Are you scared, human?
Yes, I am scared.
You are right to be scared. I have broken 100,000 worlds and dark sides there, and now I will break your planet Earth. But there is something in my way. I need a human to infiltrate the Justice League.
Do you think that could be me?
Maybe. That's why you're here. Think of this as an audition to save your planet. So, tell me, does having a purpose like this appeal to you?
If it involves saving planet Earth, then definitely.
A human with actual ambition. You outclass most of your kind and could be the one I'm looking for.
Yes, my name is Guy.
Who gave you such a feeble name, Guy?
My mother did.
One of humanity's great flaws is reliance on blood relations. Your family is your weakness.
So what you saw there was not only the real-time presentation of Steppenwolf as he appears in Unreal, but also the graph, which you saw on the left-hand side, which is how, say, Charisma.ai, which is our platform, powered that dynamic conversation and powered it in real time. And you will have noticed a couple of things. One is that primarily his dialogue was scripted. And this is increasingly important. We have all seen how great ChatGPT and all of the generative AI technologies can be to just improvise and to come up with instant responses on the fly. The problem with that is twofold. One is that previously, I suppose, when we were talking about this area about a year ago, everyone was worried it was going to go off script and be either sort of racist or misogynistic or whatever. But actually, it was worse than that. People were finding that it was boring. And if you've got a character in your game that is of a personality type like Steppenwolf or whoever it may be, you want them to really emote. You want them to be compelling and controversial. And as we've seen evolutions of various different GPT models evolve, that controversy has disappeared and things are now more vanilla, which makes them less interesting. So it's fine to use those sorts of technologies for guide characters, as sort of characters where you can ask them information about something and that they'll give a response. But if it's something where you want something compelling, then really our view is that is best done in the hands of really good writers, and that's what we do. The second side of it is an interesting piece which we've discovered over the last year, which is that when you're looking at major IP or any IP which has value in the market, you're largely working with a significant company. That company has a legal department, and that legal department wants to sign off on the scripts that are going straight out into the players. And the moment you get that question from the legal team, generative AI goes out to the window. So for us, what Charisma does is it's a balance. It's a balance between having dialogue, which you can create for NPCs, which is believable and come from the creative mind of really good writers. And also we incorporate in not only OpenAI, but also Anthropic and any other LLMs that you may have or that emerge. And that creates a sense of there being this sort of narrative tension and pace that drives the story along, and also the idea to improvise around whatever anyone says. For us, then, the way that we built Charisma.ai as a bit of a background was to create a simple interface for these writers, to write these sorts of interactive experiences. My background was that I was trying to write these, and I was in a combination of Excel and Word and mind mapping software, HTML, and just trying to hold that and then tell a story across all of those different pieces of technology was insanely hard and nearly broke me over an 18-month period. And interestingly, that project that took me 18 months to write, put into Charisma when we first launched Charisma, and it took about 2 days to write the whole thing into there. So, the interface is super important. And then, of course, you want to connect out into various different voice providers to bring these characters to life. That voice that you heard with Steppenwolf was AI generated. We integrate into 11 Labs, into Replica Studios, into Resemble, into AWS and Google and so forth. And then plugging out into whatever game that you're creating. So whether that be in Unity or Unreal, whether it's a mobile game or whatever it may be, we connect out into those. And this is a nice proof of concept we did, really showing how you can integrate Charisma into an existing 3D games engine. So this was using for a project we did with
Welcome to my tavern, adventurer.
With DreamWorks.
Can I interest you in something to drink?
Hi, can I get a beer, please?
One beer right away, sir. You have no idea what you just missed. Epic Brawl doesn't come close. Hang on. Are you a friend of Puss in Boots?
Yes, of course I am.
I thought you might be.
So what we see here is basically connecting Charisma into an existing 3D world. So whatever you've built, whatever characters you have, whatever the landscape is, we can bring those out. Actually, I'm going to hold on that for a second. So all of these are super useful as ways to engage players more. If you're already building the characters, if you're already animating the characters, if you're already building the 3D worlds, you can have a scene like that, like I just showed you, where your player is going into a house or into a bar and engaging with that character more. And what that means is they're not just going to run through the assets that you've lovingly created and take a minute to do it. They will stop and pause and engage with them for, we're seeing engagement times starting at 30 minutes and going up to 2 hours just in that one space, because what it's doing is it's engaging with the player's brain. They're characters that you like, that you empathize with, that you want to hang out with. So Charisma.ai is very much built on this concept of managing and controlling things. At the same time, we have been looking a lot at a sort of R&D and experimental piece, which says, what would it look like if we were to build a game on top of this completely new generative island that has happened over this tech stack over here? And this is a project we've been working on for a while called Project Electric Sheep, which is a 3D dream simulator. Tell it your dream and it will generate it. And it looks a bit like this.
What topic do you wish to discuss in tonight's stream? The city is full of energy and life.
Well, my friend, you're in the city of Glasshaven.
Music has the power to connect people and tell stories. Dance is a great way to express express yourself and discover new sides of your personality.
So do have a look at that. You know, as an intro, projectelectricsheep.com is the place to look. Now, let me go through this. I'll start here. So, but before I talk about the Kraken Wakes for one second, I want to talk about Electric Sheep. If we were to throw everything to a large language model or to some form of generative AI, as I said, we'd get a vanilla response. So the lesson I think we learned from Project Electric Sheep, which is what I want to share a bit of today and happy to discuss, is that is not to throw 100% of the activity to generative AI. There is room and there is a need for creative and indeed technological control that can deploy generative AI sort of as a tool, as a particular paintbrush in your palette, but don't paint your entire game with generative AI because it'll look samey. And I think we're going to see a lot of games coming up in 2024, 2025, which try that. But what we did with Electric Sheep was to combine generative AI with programmatic generation, and specifically in the game, all of the dialogue is generated by AI. The graffiti on the walls is generated by AI. The voices are generated by AI. When we come to then the buildings and the terrain, the weather system, indeed the characters, there is an existing set of tiles, of visual tiles, of constructs, of rigs that we are then improvising off from. So if your dream is particularly happy, then probably the characters are going to come across in bright colors. They're going to be wearing bright colors. They're going to be saying some nice things. The buildings are going to be positive. The sun's going to be out. Probably the terrain will be grass and summery. If it's much more darker, then your dream is darker, then you're more likely to get thunder or heavy rain or darkness in there. The buildings are going to be more castle-like or threatening, as are the characters as well. So that combination, we think, is super important of how to balance the use of AI with human creativity. And if there's one takeout that I'd say that this is it, the balance is key. One of the other projects which we did and is on Steam, which you can find, is the Kraken Wakes. And some of you may be familiar with brilliant 1950s sci-fi writer called John Wyndham. And Wyndham wrote very organic sci-fi. So his sci-fi was not very technological. It was around dead triffids, which is plants, Kraken Wakes, which is under the sea, psychology, of possessed kids and aliens and stuff like that. That was very much his shtick of sort of horror sci-fi. And the Kraken Wakes is a story of these fireballs that come from space and land deep in the ocean, and then there's nothing for a couple of years, other than a couple of ships mysteriously disappear, and then the attack starts. And there is the coastal areas of the planet are attacked by these aliens. And this is the story. The themes of it are very interesting. The themes are actually quite environmental. They're around rising water levels and climate. There's all sorts of very current themes which are running around sort of politically, socio-politically at the moment, that he was writing about back in 1952. So we adapted this into a game, and it's a conversation. The whole experience is very much driven about your relationship, who you are, the influence you have over the narrative in the game, the influence you have over the people, the non-player characters in the game. And this entire game was built on top of Charisma.ai, with elements of improvisation around it as well, to bring that story to life. So for us, what we wanted to do was really here create a showcase. What does it look like if you start with strong characters and focus on the characters rather than the environments first? What does it look like to spend time with them? You can see down at the bottom right there, you'll be sitting outside having a drink, having a coffee, whatever, and just chatting about life. What does it feel like to do that? So that was very much our focus on that. Steppenwolf I've covered, and then this project again starts to move into where we explore as well, because our view is that the video games industry is one of many industries that should be more interactive than they are. And television and film is another one of those. So this was a project we worked on with Sky TV in the UK, and Sky Sky is actually a technology company as much as it is a broadcaster, and they have the Sky Glass TV, which allows voice in, voice out. So already we can speak to the characters that we watch on TV, and that's interesting in its own right. But last year they launched a little camera that sits above your TV screen, which is, I call it a sofa-facing camera, and in essence, it's got the capability to run a Unity engine on there. It's a Google Pixel 6 in terms of processor, which allows us then to do effectively interactive television on your TV and bring this to life. And we created an undersea drama proof of concept for them, which uses the camera as a gestural interface. So again, we're combining voice in talking with the cameras with the action of moving along this rope as an undersea industrial diver, commercial diver, to bring it to life. And as you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can choose which way to go down the ropes, and that will take you down different pathways in the narrative and have different outcomes. So for us, this was then looking at different media. It was like quite high level thing, saying, okay, so the console video games market is one, the mobile video games market is another, but we've got TV over here, we've got film, we've got, social media, we've got all of these other, and indeed VR, by the way, all of these other spaces that we're working in. So for us, the ability to use AI comes in two different areas. The first is to accelerate existing production. If you are building a game and it takes you a certain amount of time to build a particular building, you can build more buildings in the same time. The artist, can bring those to life. So we will see richer, more expansive games coming out as that production cycle increases. And in essence, that's the one everyone focuses on. It's around productivity, and that's fine. But our view is that there is a second part to this, which is what you can do with it that you couldn't do before. What are the new innovations, the new game styles, the new game forms that can be enabled with various forms of AI, noting that AI is this enormous umbrella that sits over everything. What are the new forms of innovations that we're going to be able to see coming out of this? How can we break out of existing molds? And this is what we're trying to explore. So I'm going to skip through some of these. The other area that I'll talk through again, sort of riffing on that, was a project we did with Sky again, as using video. And just because video in essence is linear when it's shot doesn't mean that we can't then translate it into something interactive. So again, as you're looking at the different media, we focus a lot on games engines, but equally there are other different types of media that we can bring into our world. So just a bit about our tech stack to finish up on and open to questions. The interesting thing is people are wanting more safety, I think, in as we move into AI. They're wanting to understand not only what is powering it, what the engines are that power it, but also what the safeguards are. And my view is that you're going to have the two keywords around in this area that are going to come up in 2024 are guardrails and guide rails. We spend a lot of time looking at the guardrails, which are the hard stops. Do not go down this pathway, and the guide rails, which are which you can head down a little bit, but there's a little bit more flexibility. So for us, personally identifiable information security, that ability to safeguard, player data. We don't use essentially your player data to train our models. That's not what we're about. That's yours. Similarly, the penetration scale testing that we've used is important. And by the way, there's another layer that sits on top of this, which is the commercial model. So with Electric Sheep, we're in deep think mode at the moment around the different models that exist, because in essence now the cost model for running and operating a game like this is on a much more complicated model than a straight hosting if it was a live server. Now you're looking at multiple sorts of LLMs being hit, and that the game producer, the game publisher, is getting charged for that by third-party providers like OpenAI or whoever it may be. So for us, what we don't want to do is then pass on that complexity to a player. We want to be able to say it's still going to be this. Here's a simple charge model. What we don't want to do is come across as the more complex models that have been so contentious over the years. But it's a challenge, because actually that's the model that we get charged on as the developers and the producers and the publishers. So how we simplify that model and how we make it super simple is one of the areas where we spend a lot of time focusing on. So Charisma, in essence, is we have been working in this space now. Charisma really, we started building Charisma in stealth probably 6 or 7 years ago now, which was pre-OpenAI, pre-generative AI things. But we foresaw that these were going to be critical influencing factors across multiple industries, not just video games industry, but every industry that exists on the planet, frankly. And we also foresaw that with this new innovation comes a level of as I said, guardrails that need going on it, and that's important not only from a creative perspective, but also right the way down the tech stack. So one of the talks I gave recently was actually on how we were looking to launch Electric Sheep last year on Steam, but Steam quite rightly put a block on any game that had generative AI in it until they had a proper process in place. And could take time to really think about it. And their interest was not just sort of blanket going, we're going to stop it. Their interest was in the data sets that sit right at the heart of any generative AI model that are used to train that model. And the block was on whether or not you as a developer, you as a publisher, could prove the provenance of that and prove that it was okay to have used that data. So that in its own right is a significant question, sort of ethically as we move forward. So I'll stop sharing that there, and then come back to the main screen. I can't see if there are any questions coming through, but happy, Lauren, to take from you or anything you can see.
Absolutely, no worries. We'll give people a chance to write them in the chat if they have any, but otherwise, yeah, from my side, first off, thank you. AI continues to be this big topic, right? I love that you mentioned keywords, things like safety, the balance with human creativity, of course, the go-to concerns people have with anything AI related are the things that will remove the humans from the process or the general safety of it. But sounds like this is all very much on your radar, which is good. My question would be, since you mentioned these guardrails, the guide rails so much for kind of what's coming, is there anything maybe that's a bit more positive and less necessary but restrictive that you see coming this year for 2024 for AI topics? What excites you that you think will actually come this year?
Oh, well, I think I think a lot of it does come into that other side of the coin I was talking about what new things are going to be created. You know, it is a fantastic paintbrush, is the analogy I made, for people to evolve. I mean, even today, I was just looking at OpenAI's new, I think it's called Sora, new sort of text to video creator, which solves one of the big problems around video creation, which is consistency from frame to frame. So that is going to be incredibly exciting to see what people do with it. For me, I do think, I mean, you know, I would say this, but I think the believability of characters, of non-player characters, and what we do with them is just like a picking ground right now. You could go in and it doesn't take that much other than your own creativity really to create scenarios. And by the way, I should add, you know, part of the things we did, unfortunately I showed you, I didn't highlight it when I showed it on the slides, but one of the things we've always had is that it's not just you as a player talking to one other character. You should be able to walk into a bar with 30 people, 40, 50, whatever NPCs in there, and all of them are responsive to how you behave, what you say, what you do, and create those sorts of scenarios. And funnily enough, and I don't think it's a coincidence, over the last 2 years, we've done huge amounts of work with immersive theatre producers. You know, we had one show in London that ran that was written entirely on Charisma, that ran in the centre of London for 6 months. And it was a, I mean, brilliantly dark sort of dystopian thing about a hospital that went wrong. So that sense of you being part of a story, you being in there with the characters, you're shoulder to shoulder, like sort of Free Guy type narrative, I think is incredibly exciting. And my sense is that we're all leaping towards the next stage in the technology, but actually so much has been created already. Let's look at what we've got and go, how can we spin this into something crazy? And to be able to use a technology like Charisma, not in the video games industry, but move it into doing Shakespeare, which we've done, Chaucer, which we've done, you know, Alice in Wonderland immersive theatre, which we've done. We've had grannies on Zoom calls, on standing on chairs because the character told them. I mean, it's just crazy. All of these, I think, are incredibly exciting. And, you know, just to finish that question, I used to be really inspired by, for those of you who remember the X-Files, at the end of the X-Files TV show, there was a little sort of tiny little ident which had an animated character and a kid's voice going, I made that. And I used to be very driven by that statement. I was like, I made that, love that. And then the more we had Charisma out into the marketplace, the more I moved it to, they made that. And I loved looking at the story structures other people were coming up with, the stories people were coming out with. So I think to be able to see how we as humans and creatives respond to this, that's what excites me this year. And my very strong sort of DNA driven mantra is down that track. Like, use it, pick it up, use it. Don't worry about it. You know, worry about there are a lot of worries to be worried about, but use it and then see where it goes from there.
Wonderful. Get involved, essentially, in the interactive, immersive world that is at our fingertips now and which is still being developed over the next year.